me that. I'm doing the cloud. Okay.
I'm looking, if I have you on my giant editing screen and I have you on this screen, you're all over the place. So if I kind of like, look, maybe I should look up this way. Is this looking?
That's fine.
Well, no, wait
It
a minute.
doesn't even matter because
I'm
we're going
not
to be
on
audio.
video. All right. So
no,
forget
you're
it.
just only, you could pick your nose. No one will know.
All right.
I mean, I'll know, but I won't tell anybody.
Yeah, all right. It's
okay.
What happens here stays here.
Correct.
All right. Sorry.
All right. Welcome to I'm Booked. I'm Michael O'Leary, founder of O'Leary Publishing, and I'm so excited you're here for another episode. I have on the line with me today someone who I reached out through because his book came into my universe called, and I should have your book like in front of me right now, Through a Sober Lens. I had like a total blank spot there.
It's okay. Through a Sober Lens, a photographer's journey.
Which is like a horrible way to make an introduction to a brand new friend and a brand new guest.
All right.
Michael Blanchard is just awesome. I came across his book. Of course, many of you know I've been on the sobriety journey for close to 4 years. His book fell into my lap at the perfect time. I spent the whole weekend reading this book, crying, laughing, smiling, feeling just so connected. And I thought, this man has an absolute gift. And so as a publisher, but also as a human being who knows that books can bring us together, I read in one of his writings that he's like, well, when I post my photos on Facebook, and I was like, I'm going to find him on Facebook. So here I am today, 3 or 4 days later with Michael on the line. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Interview's over. What you just said is so amazing. I need to just record that, send it to me. We don't need to say anything else, okay?
Well, and that concludes our episode today of I'm Booked.
I haven't gotten like a testimonial like that. Oh my God, I'm getting a copy. I should have recorded it myself. Thank you for having me.
You'll get a copy. But you know what? Here's the thing is like when you can really find the language of the heart and put it out onto paper, somehow those magical words of honesty and courage can translate across the miles and across, into other people's world. And like, that's what I really felt like when I was reading your book. And so I don't want to necessarily start with the book, although the book is unbelievable. Everyone should please purchase a copy. But I want to talk about your life prior to being an author, because I think most people look at authors as like they were born an author. And the truth is that no one was born an author, and every person had to write their first word and have their first sort of idea. And so for you, what were you doing prior to being an author?
I was I'm 62 years old. Oh my God. Okay, wait a minute. Let me just take that in. I'm 62, but I started out in healthcare, and I was a microbiologist. I was actually a marine biologist. I used to measure how fast snails move. It was a very exciting job. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, I eventually got into management. I kind of lost my way early as a person, and the only path I could foresee was the one that was laid out by my dad. And he was really successful in business. And when I couldn't be the star athlete that I had hoped to be, I sort of fell in line and just did what I knew. And I moved up through the ranks in healthcare. I was in healthcare for 35, 40 years. And I eventually ended up as a chief operating officer of a healthcare company in Maine. And I had 1,000 people reporting to me. There was one catch. I was on my way down due to the disease of alcoholism. And I was there only 6 months. They just hired me. And in 3 months of time, I was arrested 3 times for drunk driving. So imagine being a chief operating officer, brand new in a company, and suddenly being arrested 3 times in 3 months.
Wow.
At the end of that, after the last arrest, I was suicidal. And when they were going to ship me off to a rehab, I bought 100 Xanax on the internet. And I had decided to take all the Xanax with the alcohol and get it over with, because they were saying a year, 2 years in jail. I just said, I'm not doing it. I'm done. I'm afflicted with an incurable disease. I'm going to end up dying in a car accident and taking somebody else with me. I had in my brain, the only noble thing that I could do was to take my own life, and then people would come to my funeral.
Hmm.
How warped is that? Like
That I would just say that's the sick and twisted mind
yeah,
of
he's a train wreck.
the disease. Yeah.
He's a miserable person, but boy, he sacrificed himself for the good of the world, just like a soldier on the battlefield. That's how
Mm.
kind of strange it was. Anyway, scroll forward out of the depression part. And
So
I didn't get
you're
fired. I didn't get fired. They kept me. And I went to rehab for 3 months in Atlanta. And for the first time in my life, I had placed in my heart that I was I had something to give. I had a reason to live. I, there was something, I actually helped kids in my last couple of weeks of rehab and help them come back and get their first start in thinking they could believe in themselves too. And in that moment where I actually could use all the pain that I went through to help somebody else, it was like a God moment for me. And it was like, okay, you're here for a reason.
wow.
And because you're open about your sobriety, that the rehab's just a start, and you got to go back home. You got to you got to start going back to civilization again. And you got to, so the thing that carried me was that I had actually helped somebody else. And it wasn't just about Michael Blanchard making the most money and getting the biggest title that he could possibly achieve. And so that was placed in my heart. And then about 3 years into sobriety, and I was kind of like, miserable, sober, but that feeling, right? So 3 years in, and so I sat in through a lecture of a graduation, and the woman there started talking about the students finding their passion, and the woman talked about a bipolar alcoholic businessman. I thought she was talking about me. That found connection and peace in through the editing and taking of photographs. And I didn't listen to any of that speech except for that couple of minutes. And then, isn't that really cool? Like, how does your brain catch on to something? Afraid of cameras, never took a picture in my life other than like a phone. I didn't know what aperture meant and f-stops and all that kind of crap. And so it just stuck with me. And so I said, I'm going to try this. And one thing led to another, and I reviewed videos and blah, blah, blah. And I started to practice. And then this is all while I'm still a COO. And I started saying, oh, I took a good picture. Like, this is cool. And then I decided to post it on Facebook, and my daughter liked it. I got one like.
Yeah.
She
We
was
all got to start with one like
she was under
somewhere.
duress.
Yeah.
And then I started doing more, and people seemed to like it. And right away, my ego kicked in. Wow, I'm a good photographer. I'm going to do this. This is cool, and then, the ego again, right? And then I eventually came to the realization that I was supposed to be doing this because I wanted to talk about what I had been through to try to help other people. And I made a decision to start posting words with the pictures. And the words, if a COO with his life's diary on Facebook, and that's what ended up happening, is that I finally started revealing things like I was struggling, and I would take a picture out on a beach somewhere, and I would come in and I'd look at the picture and I'd say, oh my God, look at that. It's got really dark clouds. I'm feeling down today, but look, there's light over there. There's always hope. And then I would just start writing about it. I mean, I used to write scientific type stuff. I don't know how to express myself. And then I would write all this on Facebook, and then people would go, there was like an, oh my God moment, because back then people didn't talk too much about alcoholism and addiction. This was like seven years ago. And I started saying I had a really down day and I have this urge to drink alcohol, but my camera grabbed me and brought me outside, and I went to this place and I saw all this beauty, and I felt connected to something that was larger than me, and I felt happiness. And when I went home, I didn't feel like drinking anymore. And then suddenly people started like writing all kinds of notes saying, holy wow, this is, I drink too. Or, you know, you're so brave that you're expressing this openly. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. This was not planned. It was just an expression that was brought out by the picture. The
Which is
pictures
amazing, because
made
the
me
thing is,
feel.
I don't, yeah. And, I don't think, I think what you're saying is so true. As I'm sitting here in my office and I'm looking at the various books of authors that I published, and I wouldn't say any one of them has said, I have a plan and I'm going to map it all out and I'm going to
Yeah.
execute the plan. It's almost like that small voice and that moment of courage to put the words with the picture and try it out and
And
see what happens. With no
you have
evidence
it.
that people are going to like it or respond or even resonate with it, but it's like feels like the right thing to do.
And what was the goal? So when I sat there that first day, or that first 3 or 4 months, and I started posting something, and then I posted about my alcoholism and recovery, or what happened to me that day. What was at the core of that? Um, I went to a speaker once and they said, if you think it, they already know it.
Mm,
There is no way to substitute authenticity. If
mm,
I had a strategic plan, and I'm not saying that people that listen to this or work with your company or you or whatever shouldn't have some direction. I had no direction. Okay. So I'm not saying that, but I can tell you, you can have direction, but you can also have authenticity.
mm-hmm,
And I didn't post those things because I wanted to write a book. I didn't post those things. I was trying to just get by. I was using the power of photography to psychoanalyze myself and to get back to the world again. I was so isolated that now I'm finding, even though Facebook seems like a weird place to start coming back to out of isolation, it was something. And so I started writing, and people were writing back, and soon, like within 6 months, I went from one like to like 5,000. And then I started writing some more, and I started talking about this and that and whatever. And then it went to 10,000. Then eventually over the first couple of years, it went right up to like 50,000 followers on Facebook, because I think people sense that I wasn't doing it for any ulterior motive, like making money or getting up the ladder. I was doing it because I got a joy out of seeing people responding and get in understanding. Parents saying, I understand my son a little bit better now. Thank you. I know it's not me, it's the disease. A wife saying, I can now forgive my husband who died of alcoholism because I understand the disease better with what you were going through. And suddenly all these things were happening. And I'm saying, oh my, I'm making a difference in this world.
mm.
And it all came from the power of a picture. If I wrote the words with no photo, there's a lot of people who write words on Facebook. So, right? If I just did a picture, there's a million amazing photographers in the world that post pictures. They're competing like on, here's a beautiful picture and I want to show you my picture. And it's, when you put the two together, that's when the magic happened, because you're reflecting something in your heart that's in that picture. And it's not that they like it because it was what you felt. It was because sometime in their life they felt that.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's the magic, because now that picture reflects that past feeling in their life. And every time they look at it from now on, they're going to feel that same thing. And, and I'll just say one quick thing, because I talked in front of a 5th grade class the other day, which is part of what I do. I like to go out into the community, and 5th graders you got to get to those kids early before they start using drugs and alcohol. And I brought a picture of a bird, on a beach. And I said to them, a woman comes into my gallery. She says, what's your favorite photo of all time? And I said, this picture. And the kids started laughing because it's a little bird looking out into the ocean. And I said, well, she says, why? And I said, because look at it. I said, what's in focus? And she looked, and it's just the
I
bird
know
and the sand,
exactly the picture you're
sand
talking
at
about.
its feet. You saw it.
I
And I
did.
said, because this is me. When I just got back, I had lost almost everything, but I had me and I had the sand beneath my feet. The water was blurry, but it looked blue and beautiful. But for the first time, I at least had me. And so I looked, and so I said to the kids, the woman came back 2 hours later and she bought the picture. And I said, why? And one kid raised his hand and said, because she really liked your story. And I said, yeah, she did. but there's one other thing. And this kid in the back of the room raises his hand and says, there was a time in her life when she maybe was starting over just like you. And I said, oh my God, you got your 5th grade? And so I ran in the back of the room and I gave him the photo. He had tears in his eyes.
Aww.
And he said, like, I said, you are the smartest kid. I said, you got it. Because I was trying to teach them, because they were trying to get trash off of Martha's Vineyard, plastic bottles. And they brought me in because they want to make their photos more powerful to get move people to action. And I said, you can attach words to photos and you can make them much more powerful. So I was trying to show, I said, nobody in their right mind would come into my gallery and buy this stupid bird photo. It's just ordinary. But if you heard that story and there was a time in your life when you were starting over, suddenly that picture, it takes on huge power and means something. And that's the power of photos together with words. So that's it for me. I basically decided, I wrote a book called Fighting for My Life, which was just like, I just throwing stuff out, like, I made 2,500 copies and they sold out. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to go through Facebook.
Which, by the way, is amazing. You know,
the 2,500 books. Is it? I'm not very
well,
skilled.
the average book doesn't sell more than 500 copies, even traditionally published. I just learned that. Did you know that?
No, it makes me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. You did 5 times better than the average. So go ahead.
Well, and we didn't do it with any, it was people would come in, I put them in waiting rooms around the island. It was all little short stories so that someone sitting there waiting for their physical might sit there and read the book and say, you know, God, this is me. I'm going to talk to my physician about my alcohol. And so many people sought help because the book it's not a novel. It's like a short little blurb. You can read it while you're waiting in a waiting room. You can say, you know, self-esteem could be the subject, or honesty and integrity. And it's like 4 sentences. And then there's a picture and if it hits you right, it'll motivate you to action. And so I like that book, but then 5 years went by and I wanted to do something more. And so I learned a lot. I mean, you learn a lot. I'm going to be 10 years sober, God willing, on July 26th of this year. It'll be my 10-year sobriety day.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And you learn a lot, right? You know, the first 2 years, you learn a lot. And I wanted to share the things that I learned, mostly that the camera brought me back to life and brought me out into the world. And it wasn't just taking pictures, it was stories. It was stories of the way that I helped people, or they helped me, and I didn't expect it. And I just basically took my Facebook, I went back 5 years and I started extracting what I felt were some of the most powerful stories. And I started compiling them, and I ended up with about 110 stories, and I had to wean it down to about 40 some odd to make it into a 100-page book. And I got some help. You know, I got some help from a friend who was a writer. She taught me how not to give away the punchline in the first sentence, but rather move the punchline to the end so that you can keep, you know, bring people into the story. And I've learned a lot. If you surround yourself with people that are, you know, can help you learn, even though I was never professionally taught in any way to be an author. I learned so much by having people come in to help. And
speaking of that, I'd love to get a plug in here for the work you did with your publisher, Genevieve Press, and here at Overeem Publishing, even though, you know, we have our so-called stable of authors. I love networking with and meeting other publishers and other authors, and just kind of, to me, it's about like when the tide rises, all boats rise.
Yeah.
So as we all kind of do the right thing and help, you know, get our messages out in the most professional way possible. Tell me a bit about how you connected with your publisher and what that process was like for you.
So again, you know, I mean, I'm not a religious person. I am spiritual, but it's sort of like God said, man, I'm going to just like, you're going to try to veer outside this. I'm going to smack you in the head and I'm going to just keep dragging you down straight. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And Julian and I co-owned a gallery together. And I come to find out he had participated in publishing a couple of books, and we eventually split because he didn't want to do gallery anymore. And his daughter's name is Genevieve, who's the cutest little girl in the whole world. And he decided to name the publishing company Genevieve Press. him and I we went off to programs, got intensive training. We're not professionals in from that sense. I was mentioning to you about the program in New York City that's held twice a year for authors and for publishers to go. It's like a intensive, how do you get your book finished and published, and then the key pieces you and I were just talking about is what do you do with it once you birth the baby and it's sitting there in your hands? How do you get it out to people's, because to just get exposure for your book? And that's kind of where we are now. But Genevieve, Julian and I just lived through it together. We went to these programs together. Him and I are learning. He's been getting testimonials from people. He has a lot of contacts from all over the country, and we've got a huge testimonial list now. I'm hoping to get on NPR in a couple of weeks. I have small snippets and a couple of documentaries on addiction. That one of them is going to go to the Cannes Film Festival, and I have him in there, and for about a minute and 30 seconds. Don't get up and go to the bathroom, you'll miss my part. And then I'm going to be in an island-wide film. We're trying to change the culture of Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard is known as the summer party place, but there's a coalition that's trying to change the social norms around the use of alcohol and drugs. That the notion that you can't be cool unless you're high. I'm going to have a major piece in there to show that you can. I don't know if I'm cool, but I have fun.
You're in a hoodie. You're pretty cool.
I have a hoodie on and everything. I look the part, but yeah. I'm hoping to just be able to say, hey, look, you can actually love life and still be happy in the absence of sedation and drugs and alcohol. You can really get excited, and you can really be glad to get up in the morning without having to have stuff in your system, right? And so I'm going to have a part in there. And all of these little things are just coming from, participating, being out there, talking. It's almost like I'm being led to some degree. But you also have to put something in on your own. And so, I'm going to be reaching out to a number of different media outlets that we met when we were in New York City, and trying to get the word out and doing it on a gradual basis. And then, offering programs here on the island for people that are suffering from addictions. And I find as you give out, it all comes back. And it's kind of cool, actually.
It's so cool.
So that was Genevieve. Yeah.
Well, so I was just going to say, so here's Michael Blanchard today, the former COO who was going down with addiction and discovered his passion and picked up a camera and heard something in a class and just decided, like, what the heck, I'll try, a little bit. And, it was this gradual unfolding process, and being willing to, put a little bit of yourself out there with photography and then add some words. And now it's opened up so many doors. And that's one of the things that I say often, is that a book can really open a lot of doors, because had you not done your book through a sober lens, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. I wouldn't know who you are.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. There was a publisher here on the island called Vineyard Stories, and her name was Jan Pogue, and Jan published about 30 books over the years, and they were all Martha's Vineyard stories. And some of them were I think the most they sold, there was 30,000 books, I think, was the biggest run of all of the 30 books. But Jan looked at me once and she says, you're a photographer. There's a ton of photographers. She says, you cannot differentiate yourself without a book. And I didn't really understand what she meant. Mm-hmm. But I thought about a book as just, okay, it's just going to show my pictures. But for me, that's what it wasn't. It's not about the photography. It's about using the photography to communicate a message. And it took me a long time to figure that out. It's really the message that you're communicating that's important. And people were able to get to know who I am and create a connection through the book. And so that's what people will, and you know, if I did it, just if I'm sitting in the back room saying, I'm going to write a book because I got to draw this connection. I need my marketing plan and I've got to like make millions of dollars. And, you know, once I tell them, you know, who I am, they're going to come in and buy thousands of dollars in art. And boy, I'm going to go get a yacht and blah, blah, blah. Doesn't work that way. It doesn't. If you think it, they know it. And if it doesn't come from the heart, it doesn't work. And when people ask me, you know, how do I get 50,000 people on my Facebook page? How do I be a professional photographer and actually make money at it so I don't have to work another job? How do I? And I can say, you got to get arrested 4 times for drunk driving. You've got to, you know, nearly end it. You've got to like almost lose everything. And then you have to go to listen to a speech and hear about something you never heard of before. And then you have to follow that for some reason that you don't understand.
It's the impossibilities of God leading us in ways that we're not even aware of at the time.
No, it's cool, actually. And the way you say it, yeah.
It's crazy. So, you know, one of the things I found really fascinating when I was reading your book and looking at the photos and connecting with the words, and this one just sticks out in my mind because it was such an emotional story for me, was the photo that you took with your drone over the lighthouse with the little flowers on the corner.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give like the executive summary, but I want you to share it with everyone. So I'm reading this book and it's a beautiful photo of a lighthouse, just directly, if you picture looking straight down, and there's a square area of like bricks, and you hardly notice this flowers. When you took the photo, you didn't really notice the flowers.
Did not see it at all. Nope. No.
And so tell them what happened. You got the photo home and you're developing it and you see the flowers, and tell us how it unfolded.
Yeah. Before I went, I had this urge to go to this. It's Edgartown Light. And at the base of the light, there are stones that you can purchase. It's a children's memorial. It's for parents, and a child can be 50 years old. I mean, you know, it doesn't have to be a small child, but you buy a stone, and every year on September 21st or so, there's a memorial service, and they all gather to honor their children that they've lost. And I just one day had this urge to go fly it. I went and I said, what are you doing? This is silly. And I went over the top of the light. I looked straight down with the drone and I took a picture. I went home and I could see a bouquet of roses on one of the corners. And it just made me really emotional because I know what somebody must have been honoring the death of their child. And so I said, this is so cool. I'm going to put it on my Facebook page. And I said, anybody that wants this picture that has a child memorialized. I start tearing up already. Stupid. Yeah. I say, anybody that has a child there that wants this picture, I'll send it to you digitally for free and you can have it made. And I said, nobody's going to do anything. They're not going to. I got like 35 families that sent me emails. And so I shipped it off. 2 weeks later, someone must have got to the mother who had laid the roses on the stone. And she got a hold of me and she sent me the pictures you saw in the book of her child and the actual roses that she took at the moment of the ceremony. And she said to me, she says, I have to believe my child's alive, is connecting us, that there's a higher place and that you don't know what this means to my family, that you took this picture and shared it. And in that moment, it hit me that it's not about the picture. See, you just don't know. It's the family relationship. It's the relationships with these people that make it. It's not. I didn't know I was going to meet this woman, but I would have never had a chance if I didn't take the picture. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, it was all. But you went out. You had the idea, like, I'm going to go take a photo of this lighthouse, and it was just like an idea. And I think that's, I guess, the larger message to me is, don't discount the little ideas and messages you get.
No, you follow through on it.
You might not be a photographer. You might not have that skill. You might be more of a writer. You might be someone who's doing any number of things. And, you know, you're driving home and instead of turning right, your intuition says, turn left today. And you're like, that's dumb. I'm not turning left. I'm turning right. But you have to honor those little inklings. Like sometimes I do that, even if I get that message and it seems like insane, I just turn left just to practice listening, even if I don't see that there was, a major impact. But it's like when you do those little steps, the ripple effects that happen afterwards, you only realize after.
Well, a major influence for me was Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment. And I don't know if you've ever read the book.
No.
The Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer decided for, I can't remember how long, but for a period of time, a year, that he was going to surrender and not judge the things that came in his path, and that he was going to go with it. So if something bad happened, he was going to surrender to it. And if it was uncomfortable to him, he met this person, he didn't want to meet them, he didn't want to follow through, he was going to follow through, he was going to force himself to do the things that came in his way. And it completely transformed his life. So the Surrender Experiment would say, all right, I have a feeling that I should go do this. You can say that's crazy, this is stupid. Or you can say, oh, I got this thing, Surrender Experiment, just go. And what I found is that as much as I was a landscape photographer, and this from reading the book, most of the stories in there have people in them. And I didn't want people. I mean, I didn't. I wanted to go take a picture of a bird. I tried to get away from people in the beginning. I didn't understand. And what happened is the pictures and the camera kept taking me to people. And I would take pictures that would, I took a picture once of some people that ended up being that I was angry that they were there because they were disturbing my morning serenity at 4 a.m. A bunch of drunk kids came down to the beach, and I said, I can't find peace on Martha's Vineyard no matter what I do. And then I said, nope, Surrender Experiment. They just came here for a reason. So I chased the kids over the beach, and I saw them lined up in their little outfits against the rising sun. And I said, you guys want to pose for a picture? And they were all drunk, and they said, of course. And I said, well, you got to hold steady, which is going to be hard for you, while I take the picture. And so they did. And so I went home and I posted the picture on Facebook, and about 2 weeks later, I got an email from a woman that said, can I get a copy of that picture? And I said, sure. She says, the 1 second from the left has terminal cancer, and my daughter's married to him, and he's going to leave us way too early.
Wow.
And she said, this photo will mean everything to us. How does that happen?
Yeah. It's insane.
It is, but
it's not at the same time.
No.
So here we are, and here we're talking about all these, I think there's this book I read about, this was many years ago. I wish I could remember the exact title, like basically the thread that connects us. It's like, there's a thread between everything, and what can you find?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I know we're going on, with a lot. We've given the listeners here today a lot of food for thought.
I'm never shy.
You know what? No, I think the main thing is like boiling it down to like brass tacks, if you will, or taking it down. It's like, do the thing that is in your heart to do, not just because we're saying go buy a camera or start getting up early in the morning and writing. Those might not be your things.
You have it. That's right.
There is a thing that will be your thing.
Yes.
And it might not be that walk away from your job today and start a new, be an entrepreneur and start a new company, but if you take the little tiny steps, if you have the courage to listen to the inkling, you could have a totally different life, like the Surrender Experiment, or like you've done, Michael, with your life, from, hitting a rock bottom moment that you used to surrender and transform your entire life. And now look at what you get to do.
Yeah, I get to be a full-time photographer. I get to wear a hoodie instead of a tie.
Amazing.
I get to run out during the day and walk my dog instead of having to go into an office. And it took a while to get there, but I did do the book and the photography while I was still employed. So there's no, you don't have to just cut ties. As long, you just keep moving in a direction, and it worked for me, so.
And, I want to just say, the world is a better place.
You are very sweet. Thank you. It means a lot to me. You know how it goes, because you have to give it back to keep what you have. You don't give it out. You can't keep it. And I still, 10 years in, my disease is still alive and well, and I need to keep a good spiritual place. And when somebody like you reaches out and tells me that it meant something to you, you lift me up. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Getting all choked up over here. It all of
No.
a sudden got pretty hot in my in this office.
Oh, good. I love it when I get people like that. It's so good.
So make sure you pick up multiple copies of the book. Michael Blanchard, tell me your website again.
It's blanchardphotomv.com. And I will give you a secret. Lovely Amazon bought a ton of books, and they're now they're discounting. My poor book's $29.95 because it's a big hardcover book with beautiful photos. And
That's what I'm saying.
Amazon's selling like for $15 now, but they sold so many that we actually moved to number 2 in landscape photography and number 20 in substance use and recovery. So it's not like I don't know what their algorithms are. They're crazy people. But if you could just look for Through a Sober Lens on Amazon and you'll see it there. And there'll soon be the second version of Fighting for My Life with all brand new pictures is going to come back out again because people are looking for that. So, anyway, thank you for having me on.
That's amazing. You know what? Grab it on Amazon. Follow Michael Blanchard Photography on Facebook. He posts amazing photos every day and has a great community of people who are really interested in not just photography, but in authenticity and connecting together. So thank you for your time today. And I really appreciate the work you've done and the miracle that you've created out of your life. It's been a blessing getting to know you.
No, it's real. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. Be happy to do this at any time. So thank you very much. All right.
All right. Thank you again. And thank you for joining us today on I'm Booked. Stay tuned for our next episode and follow Michael Blanchard on Facebook and be sure to grab his book Through a Sober Lens. Have an amazing day.